Bitcoin finds itself in a downtrend at the moment, but soon retail investors might be forced to part with $50,000 per BTC. In this video, we're going to be jumping into the technical analysis on the 1 hour, 1 day, and 1 week's time frames, sharing my thoughts and opinions on where I think Bitcoin is going. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Okay guys, so here we have Bitcoin paired up with USDT on the 1 hour chart. This here is Binance as our data source, and as you can kind of see here, we have got ourselves a downward trend for BTC. We have the high range just up here at 44,398, that's where it started. We then had a second tap on this high range at 43,787, and then we started to basically find the 200 EMA as heavy resistance. The 200 EMA is currently sat at $42,639. Here you can see that we have tested the lower trend line here twice. We have the first test just up here coming in at the 41,637, and then we had another test of that low trend line coming in at $41,300. Okay, so at the moment, Bitcoin's price action today being New Year's and New Year's Day. Happy New Year's, everyone. 1st of January 2024. We can see that it's fighting this area, right, with resistance and, of course, you know, right up here at the 50 EMA, 50 SMA, right? So at the moment, brief support is being found on that 50 SMA, that being $42,329, with the resistance on the 200 EMA at $42,639. Okay, so we can find ourselves consolidating in here just a little bit. Now, our price action is more than likely going to be pushing up back towards our upper trend line, in my opinion, today. Okay, so I know some people have been missing Elliott wave theory, so I'll show you what I'm seeing here inside the chart. So we have a 3-wave correction to here. Okay, and we are going to be looking for a 3-wave correction, maybe a 5-wave correction if it's a WXYXZ pattern pushing us up a little bit higher. Let me show you what my expectations are on this, right? So we have this initial surge here, which is a WXYXZ pattern from that low side, and I would be looking at this potentially pushing up towards this area here on the 702. I think it's not going to be as good as we want it to be as in breakout situation just yet, but if we can get it closed above the trend line, I guess that would be good. We can see potential double tops on the 1-to-1 with the 43,692 area right here on the fib scale, and if we can kind of push up into that range, that could potentially see us with a breakout situation. I just think it's a little bit too soon to see the breakout. I think we're going to have another correction before we have that surge, but I'd love to be wrong about that. Ultimately, in the next direction here, according to Elliott wave theory, will be pushed to the upside. On the conservative side, it will be on the trend line, and if we're optimistic, we could get that breakout that will take us up a little bit higher. But ultimately, I expect us to move back down, potentially test this low side once more before we actually get that breakout, and where we actually head up to that slightly higher range where retail investors are forced to part with larger sums of money for their Bitcoin. And so for now, I think that's kind of where we sit on this hourly chart. We're waiting to see whether or not we can get that breakout above the 200 EMA, and whether or not that's then going to lead us back to the downside. Momentum wise, we have some momentum to the upside there, so that's not too bad on the 1 hour. We do have, though, this bearish divergence. We can start to see this move to the downside here. So if we can't get past this 200 EMA, the expectation will be to drop back down a little bit deeper before we have that surge back to the upside towards the trend line. So for the most part, that's quite an interesting one to keep a close eye on. Volume-wise, you can see how volumes are really dropping here as we kind of hit that resistance on the 200 EMA. Ultimately, though, volumes have actually been decreasing on this whole entire move to the upside. Let me show you right here. So we've gone up higher in terms of price, but volumes are going down. This is meaning that we are likely to see a correction to the downside before we get that breakout scenario unfolding. Because I do think we are likely to see a bit of a push upwards before we actually see a larger corrective action for Bitcoin, right? And so if I zoom out of here, you can kind of see, I think this is going to hold up just a little bit longer, potentially, today, tomorrow, and then, later in the week, I think we're going to start to see that big surge to the upside where Bitcoin will be targeting out a new local high, in my opinion, to kind of take out some of the short positions that have been loaded in. So my aim and my ambition is to basically come out of a short position I'm currently in on Bitcoin as we come and test these lows, and then I will be going long on Bitcoin before eventually going short again on Bitcoin, because I do see us with a long-term correction here coming. Anyone who is familiar with the channel will know that I am thinking that we are going to likely test 30k Bitcoin in early 2024. So yeah, the expectation is a short push to the upside, but a longer term push to the downside. So let's go ahead and take this up into the daily time frame, right? So the daily time frame, you can see here that we're going to find support on this lower trend line, in my opinion, and then we're going to see a bigger push to the upside. Now, our target range for this move to the upside, I think, is going to be somewhere between $48,000 and $52,000 Bitcoin. Now, that is going to essentially be where we find bigger resistances on Bitcoin. There isn't a lot of resistance really between the current swing high at $44,700 and $48,000. A little bit, but there's not a massive amount there, meaning that we are likely to basically just see price push up to where the sellers are going to be, which is going to be in that slightly higher range at 48,000. Ultimately, with our higher highs and higher lows, we are looking for this breakout situation to occur. This breakout will be probably one of the last opportunities to get into a higher level short position on Bitcoin, because I do see us with a need to move to the downside. Our momentum indicator is indicating plenty of room to growth to the upside on the daily time frame. Our stochastic RSI is showing no divergences, so nothing there to be concerned with. Our volume profiles on this correction to the downside have been a little bit lower. They're not as low as I would have liked them to be. As you can kind of see, there's a small decrease in volume as we decrease here, basically indicating there's a less of an appetite to sell at this particular point in time. But as price has been kind of stalling out, volumes have been really, really low. So I'm expecting to see some kind of growth in the volume over the next kind of week or so, in my opinion. So from our momentum, we've got plenty of growth to the upside, both on the RSI and on the stochastic RSI. No divergences though, so we'll keep a close eye on that. Support at the moment, I think, is quite clear. We are above the 200 EMA, the 50 EMA, the 50 SMA, all looking pretty good for a big move to the upside on the daily time frame. Take this out into the weekly. Obviously, we're a few weeks out from what I believe will be a big sell the news event, the Bitcoin spot ETF, and I think we're going to see a surge ahead of that. Now, we are, of course, getting rejected right here, this being on the 702 Fibonacci area. Now, this is not a real true Fibonacci level, but this is something that I've manually added to the charts because Bitcoin loves the 702 retracement zone on the Fibonacci retracement tool, and so much to the point where you can see and backtest this in the history of Bitcoin and actually find the 702 being a major area of support and resistance. This in this particular case here, the 702 was 44,199, and we've been unable to close above it. If we can get a close above that 44,199 area, then you can see the 786, which is another key Fibonacci number, comes in at 50,112. Now, in this range, we have that area of resistance between 48 and 52,000. It's not a coincidence that you have $50,000 being the 786, and this is where basically we're going to find big resistance in BTC, in my opinion. So if we are to see this breakout, we first, of course, must close a weekly candle, in my opinion, above $44,199, and then we can see that surge upwards towards 50,000, or more specifically between 48 and 52. Now, if I take this up to the monthly time frame, you can see here that the resistance really comes in at $48,234, right on this little area just here with wicks. Now, you can see that there is the low side at 45. So if I go ahead and actually draw in a rectangular box and draw that across here, you can see that we actually have this whole area of resistance. We can wick up to this range and wick into it between 45,517 and 48,234. Obviously, knowing that there potentially could be a wick a little bit higher, heading up towards that 786 fib level on our weekly time frame, but ultimately this area of immense interest right here is going to be a point where we have to consider where Bitcoin's price action or how Bitcoin's price action is likely to be reacting to this level. As you can see, this sits between the 702 and the 786. And is really, really quite an important area. From any of these ranges a little bit higher than we have been, I am expecting a move to the downside. I've been through this a number of different times. There's lots of different levels here to the downside, right? So whether we believe that Bitcoin is likely to have a really big, healthy correction or not, if I take it from this higher range at, let's say, $48,000, then we have this move down here to about 22 to 25%. That's going to get you to that $36,000 to $37,000. Dropping down 36% to 34% gets you to the $30,000 level. This is where I think major support is likely to be found. If we can't hold this area, the next real key point is going to see a 48 to 44% drop, getting you down to $25,000. And if you can't hold those areas, then really the next big ones for us are seeing a 59 to 54% drop gets you back to that $20,000. Now, obviously, there's going to be a bit of a journey here. We don't move in straight lines. We never do, but support can be found at multiple different levels. I expect us to kind of see a lot of bouncing and going on this way and this journey to the downside, but I would be expecting a minimum, in my opinion, of about $30,000 BTC, even after pushing up into those high ranges. It will cause mass panic for retail investors, and I think we're going to see a lot of selling pressure in the first quarter of 2024 after we see the Bitcoin spot ETF sell-off event. Now, that could be a 50% drop. If we take a look, and we have done this already in a previous video, you can see many different drops over these different levels. But ultimately, guys, I would recommend that you guys check out this video right here if you want to know a little bit more about those sell-off events, and have a fantastic day. I'll catch you all in the next one.